The crowds pressed tight against the iron gates outside Buckingham Palace. Tourists snapped photos. Children waved tiny flags. And in the center of it all stood two Queen's guards, frozen like statues in their tall bearskin hats in crimson. Uniforms no one expected what happened next. It was a warm June afternoon in London. The kind of day where the sun breaks through gray clouds and turns the city golden. Outside the palace, thousands had gathered to watch the changing of the guard. Phones were raised. Cameras clicked. Everyone wanted the perfect shot. But one little girl wasn't watching the guards. She was crying. Her name was Emma, and she was only 6 years old. She stood near the front of the crowd, clutching a worn teddy bear to her chest. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her mother knelt beside her, whispering gently. But Emma couldn't stop shaking. She had come all the way from a small village in Scotland. It was her dream to see the palace. But now, standing so close to the towering guards in their serious uniforms, she felt overwhelmed. The noise, the crowd, the stiff, silent soldiers who never blinked. It was too much. One of the guards noticed her. His name was Officer James Halford. He had served in the British Army for 9 years. He had been trained to stand perfectly still, to ignore distractions, to never break protocol. The rules were clear. A Queen's Guard does not move, does not speak, does not show emotion, but something about the little girl made him pause. Emma took a step closer. Her mother tried to pull her back, but Emma broke free. She walked right up to the guard, still crying, and held out her teddy bear. "Please," she whispered. "Can you keep him safe?" The crowd fell silent. All eyes turned to the guard. Cameras zoomed in. Everyone waited to see what he would do. James stood frozen. His face showed nothing. His eyes stared straight ahead. But inside, his heart was pounding. He knew the rules. He knew what breaking them could cost him. A reprimand. Possible removal from duty. The ceremony was sacred. The image of the Queen's Guard was untouchable. But he also saw the fear in Emma's eyes. Slowly, carefully, James did something no one expected. He moved. He didn't step out of position. He didn't speak, but his gloved hand reached down just slightly and touched the top of the teddy bear. His fingers rested there for only a moment. Then, with the smallest nod, he gave the bear back to Emma. Her tears stopped. Her face lit up. She hugged the bear tight and whispered, "Thank you." The crowd erupted in whispers. Some gasped. Others smiled. A few wiped their eyes. The moment was captured on dozens of phones. Within hours, it would be everywhere. But the story didn't end there. Because what no one knew yet was why Emma had been crying. And when the truth came out, it would break hearts around the world. If you want to see more incredible stories like this, hit that subscribe button now. You won't regret it. James returned to his position. His face was stoned once again, but his mind raced. He had broken protocol. He had let emotion guide him. And deep down, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The ceremony continued. The guards marched in perfect formation. The crowd cheered, but one woman near the back wasn't cheering. She was watching James carefully. Her eyes were filled with tears. She knew something the others didn't. And soon, the world would know too. Asterisk, the ceremony ended. The guards marched back inside. The crowd began to scatter. But Emma's mother stayed. She stood near the gate holding her daughter's hand. Waiting, her name was Sarah, and she had a secret she hadn't told anyone. When the last tourist left, Sarah approached one of the palace staff members. She asked if she could speak to the guard who had touched Emma's bear. The staff member hesitated. Guards didn't take requests. They didn't meet with the public. But something in Sarah's eyes made him pause. "Wait here," he said quietly. 20 minutes later, James appeared. He was out of uniform now, wearing civilian clothes. He looked younger, without the bearskin hat. His face was kind but tired. He walked over to Sarah and Emma with cautious steps. "You wanted to see me?" he asked. Sarah nodded. Her voice shook as she spoke. "I need to thank you. What you did today, ... You have no idea what it meant." James smiled softly. She seemed scared. I just wanted to help. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. You did more than that. She knelt down beside Emma, who was clutching her teddy bear like a lifeline. Sarah looked up at James, and her voice dropped to a whisper. Emma's father was a soldier. He served in Afghanistan. 2 months ago, he didn't come home. The words hit James like a punch to the chest. He looked at Emma, and suddenly everything made sense. The tears, the fear. The way she clung to that bear, Sarah continued, her voice breaking. That teddy bear was his. He gave it to her before his last deployment. He told her it would keep her safe until he came back. Emma looked up at James with wide eyes. Daddy said soldiers are brave. He said they protect people. I wanted to see if the guards here were brave like him. James felt his throat tighten. He had seen combat. He had lost friends. He knew the weight Emma was carrying, even if she was too young to understand it fully. He knelt down in front of her. Your daddy was right. Soldiers protect people. And you know what? That bear is very special. It has your daddy's bravery inside it. That means you're brave too. Emma's lip trembled. But I was scared today. Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave, James said gently. Bravery is when you're scared, but you keep going anyway. You came all the way to London. You walked right up to a big guard even though you were scared. That's the bravest thing I've seen in a long time. A tear rolled down Emma's cheek. But this time, she smiled. Sarah wiped her eyes. We came to London because Emma wanted to see where the Queen's soldiers work. Her father always told her stories about the guards. He said they were the best in the world. She thought if she could see them, she'd feel closer to him. James felt something crack open inside him. He had stood at that gate hundreds of times. He had ignored crying children, shouting tourists, and people begging for photos. He had been trained to be a statue. But today, for just a moment, he had been human, and it had mattered. Your father would be very proud of you, James said to Emma. Honored that you came to see us. Emma stepped forward and hugged him. It was sudden, unplanned. But James didn't pull away. He wrapped his arms around her and held her gently, the way he imagined her father would have. The palace staff member who had brought James outside watched from a distance. He was supposed to report protocol breaches. But when he saw the hug, he turned away. Some rules, he thought, were worth breaking. Sarah thanked James again, her voice thick with emotion. You'll never know what this means to us. But James did know, because he carried his own scars, his own memories of friends who didn't come home. And in that moment, Emma wasn't just a little girl. She was every child who had lost someone. Every family left behind as Sarah and Emma walked away. James stood alone by the gate. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across the courtyard. He thought about the moment he had touched the bear. The choice he had made, he didn't regret it. But what he didn't know was that the moment had been filmed. And by morning, the video would be everywhere. The next morning, James woke to 53 missed calls. He sat up in bed, confused. His phone buzzed nonstop. Messages flooded in from friends, family, and people he hadn't spoken to in years. He opened his messages. The first one was from his sister. Have you seen this? You're everywhere. James clicked the link. His stomach dropped. The video had gone viral. Overnight, it had been shared millions of times. News outlets picked it up. Social media exploded. The clip showed the moment he touched Emma's bear, the little girl's tears stopping, and her face lighting up with hope. The caption read, Queen's Guard breaks protocol to comfort. Grieving daughter of fallen soldier. James scrolled through the comments. Thousands of them. Most were supportive. People called him a hero. They praised his compassion. Some shared their own stories of loss, but others were harsh. They said he disrespected tradition, that he should be disciplined, that the Queen's Guard was supposed to be above emotion. His phone rang. It was his commanding officer. My office. Now, James's heart sank. He knew what was coming. He had broken the rules. And now, he had to face the consequences. An hour later, James sat across from Colonel Raymond Pierce, a stern man with silver hair and a chest full of medals. The colonel's office was cold and formal. A portrait of the Queen hung on the wall. The silence was heavy. "You know why you're here?" the colonel said. James nodded. "Yes, sir." Broke protocol. In front of thousands of people, and now it's all over the news. The colonel leaned back in his chair. "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" James took a breath. He could apologize. He could make excuses, but he didn't. "I saw a child in pain," James said quietly. "Her father died serving this country. She was scared and crying. I made a choice to show her that soldiers care, that we're not just statues. I'd make the same choice again." The colonel's expression didn't change. He stared at James for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window. "Do you know what the Queen's Guard represents?" the colonel asked. "Discipline, tradition, honor," James replied. "Yes, but also something else." The colonel turned to face him. "Duty, and duty isn't just following rules. It's knowing when to break them for the right reason." James blinked. He hadn't expected that. The colonel returned to his desk and opened a folder. "I've received over 200 messages in the last 12 hours. From veterans, from families of fallen soldiers, from people who saw that video and felt something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope." He slid a printed email across the desk. "This one is from Emma's mother. She says you gave her daughter something no one else could. A reason to believe that her father's sacrifice mattered." James's chest tightened. He read the email. Sarah's words were simple, but powerful. She thanked him. She said Emma had stopped having nightmares, that she smiled again, that she felt proud instead of just sad. The colonel sat down. "You broke protocol, Hofford. That's a fact. But you also reminded the world what this uniform stands for. Courage, compassion, humanity." James didn't know what to say. "You're not being disciplined," the colonel said, "but you are being reassigned. Sir, the palace wants you to meet with families of fallen soldiers, to be a representative, a bridge between the military and the people we serve. It's an honor, and it's a responsibility." James felt a wave of relief, followed by something deeper. Pride. Purpose. "I accept, sir." The colonel nodded. "Good, because there's someone waiting outside to see you." James frowned. "Who?" The door opened, and in walked an elderly man in a wheelchair. He wore a military uniform covered in medals. His eyes were sharp, despite his age. Behind him stood a younger woman, pushing the chair. "This is Sergeant Major William Hughes," the colonel said. "He served for 40 years. Lost both legs in Iraq. He saw your video. He wanted to meet you." William extended a shaking hand. James shook it, feeling the strength still there despite the age. "You did something yesterday that I've waited decades to see," William said, his voice rough but clear. "You showed the world that being a soldier isn't about being hard. It's about being strong enough to be kind." James felt his throat tighten. "I just did what felt right," William smiled. "That's all any of us can do, son." The woman behind him stepped forward. "I'm William's daughter, Rebecca. I also wanted to thank you. My father struggles with the way people see veterans, like we're broken. But you showed that little girl that soldiers are protectors, that we care. It means more than you know." James didn't know what to say. He had acted on instinct. He hadn't thought about the impact. But now, seeing the faces in front of him, he understood. One moment. One choice. It had rippled outward, and it wasn't finished yet. Because across the city, a journalist named Claire Dawson was writing a story. She had tracked down Sarah and Emma. She had interviewed veterans, and what she was about to publish would change everything. Claire Dawson had been a journalist for 15 years. She had covered wars, scandals, and tragedies. But this story was different. This one felt personal. She sat in her office, reviewing the interviews. Sarah had told her everything. About Emma's father, David. About the night they received the news. About how Emma stopped speaking for 2 weeks. How she refused to let go of the teddy bear. She blamed herself, Sarah had said, tears in her eyes. She thought if she had asked him to stay, he wouldn't have gone. "I didn't know how to reach her. until that guard touched the bear. It was like he gave her permission to feel something other than guilt. Claire typed the words carefully. She wanted the world to understand. This wasn't just about a guard breaking protocol. It was about a moment of humanity in a world that often felt cold. She titled the article, "The Guard Who Reminded Us Why We Serve." It published the next morning. Within hours, it was trending worldwide. News channels picked it up. Morning shows invited James to speak. Celebrities shared the story. And then something unexpected happened. Other guards came forward. A message appeared on Claire's desk. It was from a woman named Officer Megan Torres, another Queen's Guard. She had served for 6 years, and she had her own story. 3 years ago, I was standing outside the palace, Megan wrote. An elderly man collapsed in the crowd. He was having a heart attack. Protocol says we stay in position. Wait for medical staff. But I broke rank. I ran to him. I started CPR. He survived. I was reprimanded. But I'd do it again. Claire called Megan immediately. Why didn't you ever speak about this? Megan's voice was quiet. Because we're taught that duty means sacrifice, that we don't matter. Only the mission does. But watching James on that video, I realized something. Sometimes the mission is to care. Claire published Megan's story the next day. And then another came. And another, a guard who had comforted a tourist having a panic attack. Another who had helped a lost child find their parents. A third who had saluted a veteran in a wheelchair, breaking position to show respect. Each story was different, but they all had one thing in common. They were human moments in a job that demanded you be anything but. The public response was overwhelming. Support poured in. People shared their own experiences with guards who had shown kindness. Veterans spoke out about the pressure to appear emotionless. Families of soldiers thanked the guards for reminding them that service was about people, not just duty. But not everyone was happy. A retired general named Sir Reginald Howe wrote an op-ed. Discipline is what separates soldiers from civilians. If we allow emotion to dictate our actions, we lose the very foundation of military order. What James Halford did was reckless. It sets a dangerous precedent. The backlash was fierce. Supporters of James flooded social media, defending him. Arguments erupted. The story became a national debate. Should guards remain emotionless? Or should they be allowed to show compassion? James stayed quiet. He didn't want to be the center of controversy. He just wanted to do his job. But then, a letter arrived at the palace. It was from the royal family. James was summoned to a private meeting. He arrived nervous, unsure what to expect. He was led through marble halls and into a sitting room filled with light. And there, waiting for him, was someone he never expected to meet. Prince William. The prince stood and extended his hand. Officer Halford, thank you for coming. James shook his hand, his heart pounding. Your Highness. William gestured for him to sit. I've been following your story. The whole country has. And I wanted to speak with you personally. James sat stiffly, unsure what to say. I know what it's like to lose a parent, William said quietly. I was young when my mother died. And I remember the people who showed me kindness. The ones who treated me like a person, not just a title. What you did for Emma? That's what she'll remember forever. James felt his chest tighten. I didn't think it would become this big. That's because you weren't thinking about yourself, William said. You were thinking about a child in pain. That's exactly the kind of soldier, the kind of person we need representing this country. William reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. I'm not here to reprimand you. I'm here to thank you. And to give you this? James opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. It was an official commendation, a recognition of service. Signed by the royal family. We want you to continue what you're doing, William said. Meeting with families, showing the human side of service. You've started something important. Don't stop now. James looked at the letter, then at the prince. I don't know if I'm the right person for this. You are, William said firmly. Because you didn't ask for it? You just did what was right. James left the palace that day with a new purpose. He wasn't just a guard anymore. He was a symbol, a reminder that strength and compassion could exist together. But the story still wasn't over. Because back in Scotland, Emma was watching the news with her mother, and she had a question. "Ma'am, can we go back to London? I want to see James again." Sarah smiled, tears in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart, we can." What Emma didn't know was that James had been planning something too. Something that would bring her face to face with her father's memory in a way she never expected. 3 weeks later, Sarah and Emma returned to London. They were invited by James himself. He had arranged something special, though he kept the details secret. Emma wore her favorite blue dress. She clutched the teddy bear tightly. She was nervous but excited. She had watched James on the news. She knew he had become famous because of her. But to her, he was still just the kind soldier who had touched her bear. They met at the gates of Buckingham Palace. James was waiting, dressed in civilian clothes. He smiled when he saw Emma. "Hello again," he said gently. Emma smiled back, suddenly shy. "Hi." Sarah shook his hand. "Thank you for inviting us." Emma hasn't stopped talking about this. James knelt down to Emma's level. "I have something to show you. Something I think your daddy would have wanted you to see." Emma's eyes widened. "What is it?" "Come with me." James led them inside the palace grounds. Sarah gasped. Tourists never got access like this. They walked through courtyards and gardens, past guards standing at attention. Some of the guards nodded to James as he passed, a silent sign of respect. They arrived at a small memorial garden. It was quiet, peaceful. Flowers bloomed in every direction. In the center stood a stone monument. Engraved on it were names, hundreds of them. "This is the memorial garden for fallen soldiers," James said softly. "Every name here is someone who gave their life in service. Your father's name is here too?" Emma stepped forward slowly. Sarah covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. James guided Emma to a section of the wall, and there, carved in stone, was the name David Robert Clark. Sergeant. Afghanistan 225.MA reached out and touched the letters. Her small fingers traced the name. "Daddy," she whispered. James knelt beside her. "He was a hero, Emma, and he'll always be remembered here. You can come visit him anytime you want." Emma looked up at James, tears in her eyes. "Does he know I came?" James smiled gently. "I think he does, and I think he's very proud of you." Sarah joined them, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder. Together they stood in silence. The garden was filled with the sound of birds singing and the rustle of leaves. It felt sacred. After a few minutes, Emma turned to James. "Can I tell you something?" "Of course." "I had a dream last night," she said quietly. "Daddy was in it. He said he wasn't sad anymore. He said a kind soldier helped his little girl. He said thank you." James felt his throat tighten. He didn't believe in signs or messages, but in that moment, he wanted to. "Your daddy is watching over you," James said. "And he always will be." Emma hugged him. Sarah wiped her eyes, overwhelmed with gratitude. But James had one more surprise. "There's someone else who wants to meet you," he said. He led them to a nearby building. Inside was a small gathering. Veterans in uniform. Families of fallen soldiers. And in the center, waiting quietly, was Officer Megan Torres, the guard who had saved the man's life. Beside her stood Sergeant Major William Hughes, the elderly veteran James had met weeks ago. Emma looked around confused. "Who are they?" "They're soldiers," James said. "Some are still serving. Some have retired. But they all have something in common. They all wanted to meet the brave little girl who reminded them why they serve." One by one, the veterans approached Emma. They shook her hand. They thanked her. They told her that her father was a hero, that she was a hero too. William Hughes rolled forward in his wheelchair. He looked at Emma with kind, watery eyes. "Your daddy and I never met, but we fought in the same war. And I want you to know something. Every soldier who serves does it for kids like you, so you can grow up safe, so you can dream. Your daddy loved you more than anything." Emma nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. I miss him, I know, William said. But he's not really gone. He's in your heart, in your courage, and in that bear you're holding. Emma clutched the bear tighter. This was his. Then it's the most important thing in the world, William said. The room was silent, except for quiet sniffles. Even the toughest veterans wiped their eyes. Sarah stood in the back, watching. She had been so afraid that Emma would grow up bitter, angry at the world. But instead, she was surrounded by love, by people who understood, who cared. James approached Sarah. I hope this was okay. I didn't want to overstep. Sarah shook her head, tears streaming. You've given her something I couldn't. You've shown her that her father's sacrifice mattered, that he's not forgotten, never will be, James said. As the gathering ended, Emma walked back to the memorial garden. She wanted to say goodbye to her father's name. James and Sarah followed at a distance, giving her space. Emma stood in front of the stone again. She held up the teddy bear. I brought him to see you, Daddy, she whispered. The soldier you told me about. He's real, and he's nice, just like you. She kissed the bear and placed it gently at the base of the monument. Then she stepped back. I have to go now, she said softly, but I'll come back. I promise. She turned and walked back to her mother, her head held high. She didn't cry. She didn't look sad. She looked strong, because she was her father's daughter, and she was going to be okay. James watched her go, his heart full. He had broken protocol that day. He had made a choice that changed everything, and he would never regret it. 6 months passed. The world moved on to other stories. But for those involved, life had changed forever. Emma returned to school. She made new friends. She laughed again. She still missed her father, but the pain wasn't as sharp. She visited his name at the memorial garden twice more. Each time, she left a flower. Each time, she felt a little bit stronger. Sarah started a support group for families of fallen soldiers. She wanted to help others the way James had helped her. The group met monthly. They shared stories. They cried together. They healed together. James continued his work as a liaison between the military and the public. He visited schools. He spoke at memorial services. He met with families who had lost loved ones. And every time, he remembered Emma, the little girl who had changed everything. But the story reached further than anyone expected. In the United States, a similar moment occurred. A Marine standing guard at Arlington Cemetery broke protocol to comfort a widow laying flowers on her husband's grave. The video went viral. People compared it to James's moment. In Canada, a soldier stopped a ceremony to help an elderly veteran who had fallen. In Australia, a guard saluted a young boy whose father had died in service. Each moment was different, but they all carried the same message. Compassion matters. Humanity matters. Rules are important, but so are people. The military began to change. Slowly, quietly, new training programs were introduced. Guards were taught that showing empathy didn't make them weak. It made them stronger. James received letters from around the world. From soldiers who had been afraid to show emotion. From families who felt seen for the first time. From children who now believed that heroes were real. One letter stood out. It was from a young recruit named Oliver. He wrote, I joined the army because I wanted to be strong. I thought that meant being hard, emotionless. But after seeing what you did, I realized strength is knowing when to be gentle. I want to be the kind of soldier who protects people, not just follows orders. Thank you for showing me what that looks like. James kept the letter in his desk. He read it whenever he doubted himself, whenever he wondered if he had done the right thing, a year after the incident. James was invited to speak at a military academy. He stood in front of 200 young cadets. They watched him with curious eyes. When I touched that little girl's teddy bear, I didn't think about the consequences, James began. I didn't think about the cameras or the rules. I just thought about her. A child who had lost her father, who needed to know that someone cared. He paused, looking out at the faces. Being a soldier isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about seeing the people around you and choosing to act with courage and kindness. That's what real strength is. The room was silent. Then slowly, one cadet stood and began to clap. Then another, and another. Soon the entire room was on its feet, applauding. James felt his chest tighten. He hadn't expected this. He was just a man who had made a choice. But that choice had rippled outward. It had touched lives, changed perspectives, started conversations. After the speech, a young woman approached him. She had tears in her eyes. "My brother died in combat 2 years ago," she said. "I've been angry ever since. Angry at the world, at the military, at everyone. But your story made me realize something. He didn't die for nothing. He died protecting people. And people like you honor that sacrifice by caring." James didn't know what to say, so he just listened. "Thank you," she whispered, "for reminding me why he served." That night, James sat alone in his apartment. He thought about the past year, the chaos, the criticism, the praise, the moments of doubt, but mostly, he thought about Emma, the little girl who had walked up to him with a teddy bear and changed his life. He wondered where she was now, what she was doing. If she remembered him, he didn't have to wonder long. A knock came at his door. He opened it to find a package. No return address. Just his name inside was a drawing. It was done in crayon. A little girl holding hands with a soldier. Above them, a man in uniform floated in the clouds, smiling down at the bottom. In wobbly handwriting were the words, "Thank you for helping me find my daddy's smile again. Love, Emma." James sat down, holding the drawing. Tears streamed down his face. He had spent his entire career trying to be the perfect soldier, following orders, maintaining discipline, hiding emotion. But the moment he let himself be human, he had done more good than all those years combined. He placed the drawing on his wall. A reminder, a promise, a truth he would carry forever. Rules matter. Discipline matters. But people matter most. And sometimes, breaking character is the bravest thing a soldier can do. Years later, when people asked James about that day at Buckingham Palace, he always gave the same answer. "I didn't break character. I found it, because being a Queen's Guard wasn't just about standing still. It was about standing up. For those who couldn't, for those who needed it." For moments that mattered, Emma grew up strong. She became a teacher. She told her students stories about courage, about kindness, about the soldier who touched a bear and changed everything, and every year. On the anniversary of that day, she returned to the memorial garden. She laid flowers on her father's name, and she whispered a thank you to the guard who taught her that heroes don't just fight battles, they fight for people. One moment, one choice, one act of compassion. That's all it took to change the world. And in the end, that's what being a soldier is all about.